Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to this session on maximizing development impact and unlocking economic resilience through cross-sector solutions and Azo Rubik. I appreciate you guys being here so promptly after lunch, and I commit to a hard finish as well on time in 90 minutes. A few familiar faces from a cross-sector solution session yesterday. So thank you in advance for being with us and for completing a pre-event questionnaire, which was shared with a number of the session attendees and on the Whova app. You'll notice that the QR code that is here is going to be on many of the slides. So if you are able to, if you have not already completed the questionnaire, please do take a moment as we go through the presentation today. The topic that we're going to investigate a little bit more in the next 90 minutes is cross-sector solutions. We have a fantastic set of speakers and panelists here for you, and I'm really grateful to them all for making the time. Without further ado, we'll start by jumping into the program, because we have quite a packed schedule. And I would like to ask DG Cleo to please come up to open the session with some opening remarks. Thank you.
Good afternoon. It's so good to be here because I'm an energy person at heart, and I will always be. I'm sorry for all of the sectors that I cover now. I mean, really though, when we're working on energy sector projects, I mean, we would say like, yes, okay, we get you the energy, but we can't resolve the other problems because that's what we do. But I think it's really good on this topic that we're thinking about the whole of the issue rather than just the pods. And well, I understand it's the first time in the 20 years of ACEF that we're thinking in this way. Cindy, is that true? Oh my God. Okay, idiots. I mean, as we've said in our president said, solving complex issues together, right? That's the new ADB moniker, right? So the problems that faces our region today are really complex. And we have to have cross-sectoral approaches because everything is interconnected. And cross-collaboration is the only way we can resolve such complex issues. I mean, climate change, water, food, energy insecurity, inequality, and the persistent poverty, inequity. I mean, they don't respect sectorial divisions. There's no boundaries on that. So we all need to come together to resolve these really challenging issues effectively, efficiently, sustainably, and for the future. I mean, just a month ago, at our annual meeting, President Konda announced the 26 billion in new funding for tackling food system transformation. And if you can stand up, Takeshi, you're the one responsible, yay. and I mean, this is an extremely complex problem, and it will depend on every sector coming together. I mean, it's transport, right? I mean, it's logistics, it's nutrition, and overall, you need energy to produce food. So it is energy sector, and all of this has to come together, from farming to processing to distribution and consumption to financing and policy support and the companies. We all have to come together to have this one very sticky issue that we have. I mean, we have, I was on a panel last week for the Water Forum with a professor from Japan that said that, in the last 100 years, so many things have gotten so much better and there's enough food to feed everyone. And then we were going like, okay, 268 million people go hungry every night. Why is that? It's a problem of logistics. It's a problem of getting the food to the right places. And so if we don't look at these problems in a holistic way, we're never going to get the solutions. think another example could say is the decarbonization of Baku Metro in Azerbaijan. It's just the transportation, which combines clean energy and sustainable transport and digital innovation. I mean, we have to use the innovativeness, the creativeness of the private sector to reduce our carbon footprints, improve reliability, and enhance passenger experience. All of this has to come together into this one digital, one transport project. So this is why ADB Strategy 2030 places special emphasis on cross-sector collaboration at the center of our efforts. I mean, I don't think we need to say more, right? The problems are complex. Everything has to come together. The solution has to be the solutions that we formulate has to develop, well, for project development, has to touch on all the nodes of the issues and connect the transport to healthcare, energy to education, and digital technologies to climate resilience. Governments, private sector, ADB, and other development partners all have a role to play. We must foster regulatory environments and partnerships that enable cross-sector investment and innovation. Together, we can deliver projects that not only meet immediate needs, but also builds the foundation for long-term, sustainable, resilient, and inclusive growth. Problems that we face are absolutely complex, daunting, and require integrated cross-sector solutions. So, what I'd like all of you to do, yes, come on, everyone. Let us commit to all working together for once to solve the whole problem rather than just our siloed parts. By doing so, we fulfill our responsibility to the people and the communities that we serve, ensuring progress is not only achieved, but sustained and for generations to come, ensuring the better lives and livelihoods for the people that we serve. Thank you.
Thank you very much, DG Cleo. I believe that Priyantha has, Senior Sector Director Priyantha is here. Fantastic. You snuck in just at the end. Apologies. Fantastic. Please come to the stage. I was going to do my best impression, but it wouldn't be a patch on the real thing. So please.
I seem to look a little older here, no? Okay, good afternoon, colleagues, distinguished guests. Sorry that actually he was looking for me because I was supposed to do an opening remarks in some other session, which I did, and then quickly came over. So thank you, Cleo, for that inspiring call to action on power and promise of cross-sectoral solutions. As I always say, we are trying to find solutions to the problems in the society, not energy solutions or digital solutions or water solutions, or there can be only subsectors to find a solution to a problem which we're trying to solve in the community. So it's obvious that we have to work across sectors. We wholeheartedly agree that working across traditional boundaries is essential if we are to achieve prosperous, inclusive, resilient, and sustainable future for Asia and the Pacific. However, while our shared vision is clear, the journey to cross-sectoral collaboration is not always straightforward. Developing cross-sectoral projects comes with its own set of challenges. I quickly list out 4 challenges, which I'm sure most of you are very much aware of. The first one is the institutional barrier. Many of our organizations, both public and private, are structured around specific sectors. You go to a country, you see Ministry of Energy. You don't see a ministry looking after different sectors together, connected sectors. Hardly you see them. Sometimes you do, some of them. are structured around specific sectors operating from separate budgets, goals, and accountability frameworks. This compartmentalization often makes it difficult to coordinate efforts, align incentives, and facilitate the free flow of information across teams. The second is new approaches to thinking and working. Tackling issues like food insecurity requires more than traditional solutions. It demands a holistic approach that blends farmer support, grid tech innovation, digital tools, natural capital management, and private sector engagement. Consider the innovative agrivoltaic project in Sri Lanka, financed by ADB and commissioned a few months ago. By combining solar energy generation with agriculture production with semi-transparent solar panels above a tea plantation. The project maximizes land use efficiency, boosts agriculture productivity, and generates clean electricity. What a wonderful solution if you can make it economically viable. Financing and risk sharing complexities. Compared to traditional single sector initiatives, cross-sector projects often lack established financing and risk sharing mechanisms. Mobilizing right mix of public and private capital and ensuring that benefits and the risks are evenly shared remains a complex challenge. Measuring multidimensional impacts. The success of cross-sectoral initiatives is multifaceted and often unfolds over time. This means we need to develop new matrices and monitoring systems that capture a broad range of outcomes and benefits. Particularly in ADB, if you don't measure, you're not incentivized to work on them. Despite these challenges, the transformative rewards of cross-sector collaboration are well worth the effort. In the panel discussion that follows, you will hear from the experts who actively shaped cross-sectoral solutions both in ADB and outside. We will share practical insights about what has worked, what hasn't, and the strategies they have employed to overcome collaborative barriers. I encourage you to actively engage with their experiences, ask insightful questions, and reflect on how we can collectively transform challenges into opportunities. By learning from one another, we can refine our approaches and accelerate the development of cross-sector projects that truly make a difference. Thank you very much, and I look forward to a rich and productive discussion ahead.
Excellent. So my name is Suzanne Ross. I work in the Department of Communication and Knowledge Management, and among other things, I facilitate integrated knowledge management, integrate solutions, interdisciplinary work that ADB does. So I am extremely happy and proud that we have now, I calculated it, around 160 years of experience on this stage here. When I introduce my colleagues, and I'd like to start with Cindy. So Cindy, if you could please join us here on the stage. Cindy leads the emerging energy sector. She's a great champion for innovation, one of the first ones in ADB who worked on renewable energies many years ago in Central and West Asia when we started together. And then I'd like to invite, please, Jamie. Jamie leads emerging transport sector, and Jamie is the co-author of a very interesting publication, Rethinking the Transport Sector, where he applied with his team future thinking and foresight and was one of the first ones to look at integrated solutions. And then we have Srini, who has served in many functions in the private sector and public-private partnerships, and now leads urban development and thinks always across different stakeholders and sectors, and leads this team now in Southeast Asia, right? And then we have Yoko. Yoko is the director for environment, and she brought nature back in the bank, bringing in, again, forest investments and looking at nature as an integral part of many sectoral work and investments that we are actually doing. And then we have Antonio, who is our director for digital. He joined us recently from the Inter-American Development Bank and brings also many years of experience to ADB. So we are looking at mainstreaming digital, but also building our own investment portfolio. And now we have also Takeshi, and he leads, he's a director for agriculture and food security, and is a champion for integrated approaches in agriculture and natural resources. So you see great wealth of expertise here. And I also would like to introduce already Dodo. His task will be to think critically about what this panel here is saying and reflecting, because Dodo is the director for health. And at the end, it's all about the health and the well-being of the people, and of course also the environment living on this planet here. But we should make sure that actually we support how people can live well on this planet. So with that, what we want to do is we want to bring you through a journey of examples, practical examples. And while we do that, you can interact with the app and drop your questions in the app, please. There will also be an opportunity later to raise your hand and you can say something in person. I'll monitor this here. And we'll start now with Cindy. We heard about integrated solutions from our opening speakers, from Cleo and Brianta. And now what we wanted to do, I think, is we wanted you to walk us through what this actually means for you. What's your vision for integrated energy sector solutions, and what are some of the examples that you have worked on in the last couple of years?
Thank you, Suzanne, and good afternoon, everyone. It is indeed a privilege for me to be part of this prestigious panel and to start off the discussion. We always believe that energy is cross-cutting, and energy fuels infrastructure, energy fuels economic growth. So it only makes sense that energy will be included in every initiative that ADB has, and not only infrastructure, but even the softer sectors that we cover. So what you can see on the screen is an example of what we had already implemented in Kiribati and Tuvalu. This is an island community where they face multiple interrelated challenges: energy, food, water insecurity. They are battered by 21 cyclones a year. They are among the least developed countries of ADB, and very vulnerable not only to climate change, but to fuel shocks, because they import a lot of their energy. Most of their generation is powered by fossil fuel. Transport, of course, is also fossil fuel. So this solution we implemented, we approved a couple of projects already in Tuvalu and Kiribati, where you have a floating PV system. It's a climate adapted technology for producing energy. So that's mitigation as well as adaptation. And of course, it powers productive uses for transport, electric mobility. It includes e-boats and electric vehicles and charging stations. The project includes electric reef regeneration, not only to protect the floating PV system, but also the coast. And we have another layer of protection from the coast. We call it nature-based solutions around clay reefs. And this actually enhances fish growth, and that addresses some of the food insecurity. The other sectors are also addressed in the way that we support early warning systems and climate resilience infrastructure, including evacuation centers, and of course, education. Schools as well as clinics are provided with solar generation, and water is also provided through renewable energy for desalination and water production. And all of these is going to be powered by smart energy management systems. So all the sectors are covered in this one tiny island that's going to be developed more holistically, and we maximize development impact through integrated cross-sector solutions.
Thank you, Cindy. Thank you, Cindy. I know we are going through a lot of content here, but maybe one question for you. What made this possible?
Okay, so this was developed in 2003 or approved in 2023 and 2024, respectively, Tuvalu and Kiribati. But we had always thought about this before. But today, we are making this more intentional. Before, it was ad hoc. So you see an energy project and see there's a potential here for for e-mobility, because you already have the electricity. They need land vehicles, they need boats, and they don't have enough energy. And then, of course, they are battered by cyclones. How can we protect the coast? So it became organic at that time, but it wasn't really intentional from the start. And that's what needs to change. We need to be more intentional in designing a cross-sector solution.
Thank you. Great examples. If you have questions, please note them down. We have the opportunity later. So now we are going from remote islands in the Pacific to an example in the Caucasus region. So Jamie, if you can share with us the example you are working on right now with an integrated team in Azerbaijan.
Thank you very much, Susan. It's great to be here. And I want to give an example that I think is a little bit more sort of bottom up, and I'll explain how it evolved and brought in many different cross-sectoral solutions. This is Azerbaijan, and what instigated a lot of this, we were asked to provide some fairly straightforward technical financial support to the rail operations in Azerbaijan, ADY, the rail company. So we provided new rolling stock, we upgraded some of the lines and put in electrification. So coming back initially to that better operations. A lot of the credit should go to our country office, keeping close contact, but also a very enlightened client, looking at how they could push these boundaries, particularly cost-saving, operational efficiencies of the rail system. So from that initial sort of rail infrastructure assistance, financial support, we looked at digitalization and brought in how can digitalization be used to better operate the passenger services and the freight services. Azerbaijan is on this middle corridor that's connecting Asia with Europe. So it's sort of a fully integrated rail system as a multimodal transport. But that digitalization, ensuring that the operations, they knew where their equipment was, how could they operate their equipment more efficiently and more effectively. It was sort of how we can generate more revenue. And that's what I mentioned, ADY being quite an enlightened client looking at broader components. Perhaps the most exciting one is the one we're currently working on, and that's this decarbonization and looking at carbon negative. I don't know whether that's a common term, but what they're actually looking at now, and again, it was a simple infrastructure, digitalization, better operations, then now moving into carbon negative. Many railway systems have considerable land holdings, and what they were looking at, could they make use of that land? And in this case, could they put solar or wind renewable energy sources to power the electrification of the railway network, but also there would be significant excess power generated through those renewable energy sources. And so that's why it's carbon negative, because yes, they will power from their own land holdings, the renewable energy for the operation of the railway, but significant excess power could be generated that could be fed back into the grid as well. So very much a bottom-up, very enlightened client, strong collaboration from transport with digital, with energy, about how we can keep pushing the boundaries and provide that better integrated solutions to build up. And railways aren't often that sort of profitable. So while there are other revenue sources, that could be tapped, that would make rail, which is the most energy efficient mode of transport, be much more viable, and therefore continue to feed this middle corridor across the country and from Connection Asia to Europe.
Thank you. Jamie, so what is the most challenging thing coordinating this integrated transport, digital and energy approach in this context in Azerbaijan?
I think it's what Priyantha mentioned, it's probably the institutions.
The institutions.
Because railway falls under transport, but now we're having to talk to the energy and we talk to the digitalization. Are all the policies aligned to be able to provide this support? Can we collaborate, bring them in? And that probably is the hardest component. Again, a very enlightened client government, ADY, the rail operator, who's been helping a lot within the government side to try and ensure close collaboration across the various institutions that need to be working together.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Jamie. So if you want to learn more about that example, please drop your questions and we'll discuss it later. So Srini, now we are moving from large-scale transport, energy nexus to urban, integrated cross-sector solutions and action for urban spaces. Maybe you can share some of the examples you have seen, you're working on, and you're most excited about.
Thank you, Susan, and thanks for inviting me to this panel. Let me start by saying, look, when I go and meet with any city government official, particularly, let's say a mayor, when I give my card, as it says Director of Urban Development and Water, the questions that come to me, I've just listed some of them because it's interesting the way I was looking at. The challenges is that what can I do to solve pollution problem in my city? What can I do to make my city more investment friendly? Or where can I invest to make green jobs coming in? And it's all city-centric questions. And this is what, the beauty of urban is. Actually, urban is not a sector, it's actually a space where you bring various sectors together. And that's really been the driving force for our thinking in terms of how we could look at cross-sectoral solutions. And I'll list maybe a couple of them, and I'll pick up one which will be interesting for everyone. So we've been working across a number of sectors looking at energy efficiency in buildings and also in residences. We're working with various teams on economic revitalization, which is what I'll come back to. Decarbonization of Asian cities is another example where we're trying to work with the energy and transport team to say how can we take on specific initiatives to support decarbonization in these cities, and creating pathways for private sector, which is one of the critical aspects, because we know that at the end of the day, there's only finite resources that are going to be available, whether it's in multilateral budget. What conditions can we create? Because private capital will not come in on its own. How do we use our balance sheet to essentially de-risk some of these things we can bring private sector into it? So one example that I want to talk about is 6-7 months ago, the government of India invited both ADB and the World Bank to look at 3 distinct pieces of work. One was called creative redevelopment of cities as growth hubs, and the third one was trying to create more pathways for private sector in water supply and sanitation work. So we went about doing that, and this was a very fascinating work because the whole theme itself was very cross-cutting. So we had colleagues from our public sector team, we had colleagues from OMDP, we had colleagues from private sector teams, but also we were working with the World Bank, which itself was also very interesting because of the dynamics. And it really unraveled the opportunities that we could look at within urban in terms of urban regeneration, private sector engagement. What could we do as multilateral banks to address some of the de-risking issues, looking at credit enhancement products, but also understanding the ecosystem of the city. Now, with that work that was presented to the government, on the back of that, in the budget of Government of India a couple of months ago, they announced a $12 billion program called the Urban Challenge Fund, which kind of not only demonstrates the interest, but also shows the proof of pudding in terms of the work that was done, which was labeled as knowledge work, but leading to real hardcore investment that is being planned out over the next 5 years. So we would continue to work on specific investment, essentially trying to use the Urban Challenge Fund as a platform to identify specific investment opportunity in the city region. And these could be cross-cutting. This could be transport, they could be energy efficiency, they could be even issues about skills development for greening economies. So range of opportunities will come out of this. So I thought this is something would be of interest because it really demonstrates, as I was saying, urban being a space rather than a sector where we really bring everything together as a system integration. Thank you.
So Srini, what you say is interesting. You said India put out the mission to develop urban in that way. What's the most difficult thing about financing these integrated urban solutions in general if the government doesn't set up such a mission?
Well, cities as a whole, in large part of our part of the world, are simply not credit-worthy enough for private sector to come in. They don't have a sufficient balance sheet, or they don't have a revenue base that actually can become a credible counterpart for private sector engagement. And for us to then start to develop a program which actually improves that, and looking at what can we do to improve their own balance sheet, but also raise other sources of revenue. In the creative redevelopment work stream, we found out there are large segments of buildings and land masses that are sitting and idle, not being put to use. So we are trying to develop a plan which can actually unlock value from there. Transit-oriented development that can be attached to a metro rail project. That means that you can actually have work and play coming very close. Creating affordable housing, which is a very big thing for India now, trying to use their existing program to really try to use their initial capital to bring in private sector into it. So we're looking at very specific areas, understanding the pain points of what the private sector goes through these things. And the reason why we're able to do that, many of us have actually been in the private sector before. We understand the credit issues, and that helps us to then have argument and discussion with the client in a much more effective way.
Thank you, thank you. So also integration, not just across sectors and themes, but also public and private sector is very important for these integrated solutions. Thank you. So before we go to Yoko and Antonio, let's hear from Takeshi first. We spoke about small islands, spoke about national approaches and urban. What does integrated solutions mean for agriculture and food security, natural resources? Unfortunately, we don't have another ecosystem, but hopefully soon that we can show to you.
Sure.
Please.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I was just counting how many years I've been working on cross-sectoral projects. I would say maybe half of 20 years of my experience in international organizations. I mean, almost 25, maybe cross-sectoral. I mean, part of the reason is I'm from agriculture and also rural development. As you know, Srini said, rural development is kind of a space. It's not really one sector. So energy is in, and the rural road is in, of course, digital. And we are closely working with the, nature, environment. Without rural development doesn't, hold. So, because of my, this area where I work, I've been working, that's in my blood. And I just want to introduce two, aspects. One is project level. The other one is program level of cross-sectoral cooperation. Okay, so project level, the many Minister of Agriculture, when I talk to them, now they say farmers cannot make enough money compared to, non-farming occupations. So how can we help? And there is no enough job in rural area. How can they, how can they stay in rural areas without, getting into poverty? So it's really, commercializing agriculture. That's very important, or agri-food. So we are looking at now not only production, but also, processing and logistics, and also marketing and trade, all that spectrum. So that really requires Ministry of Industry and a Ministry of Agriculture and a Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Rural Development, all the sectors required. So, the developing countries' issues is getting more complex, and our solution has to be, responsive to it. So naturally, projects become like this. Another example is program level. So 2017, ADB was requested by the government of China to support realization or actualization of so-called ecological civilization. That's the kind of ideology that President Xi introduced. So China was busy with economic growth, but they left environment behind. So now put the environment for most important priority. As well, we do economic growth and urbanization. So they requested us, ADB and World Bank, to support planning of this, using Yangtze River as one model. Yangtze River is a huge river, like 6,500 kilometers. And 40% of Chinese economy is there, and 8 provinces. So we are requested to plan together. So we came up with like different sector, kind of areas, sustainable urbanization and multimodal transport system, its river, and also, industrial transformation, because they had a very heavy industry along the river. So they wanted to transform to high technology, clean industry. So, we assisted. And the it was great success. We made 2018 to 2021, 2 billion over 3-year program. And, but success was done because it came from really, high-level government and also ownership. My counterpart was NDRC, so National Development and Reform Commission. That's a planning ministry. So they had a very strong hold. So that's why it was successful and impactful. Yeah, I stop here.
So thank you. So would you say that development in rural areas with energy is not possible?
It is possible, and also, it is important, but for Yanzi River, somehow energy was lacking. But definitely energy is huge. Demand, for instance, Cambodia, energy cost is so high. So we have to really have localized energy support for agro-processing in the rural area for job generations. So energy is very important part of it.
Thank you very much. So we heard a lot now about also environment, nature, integrated planning in rural areas. So Yoko, I think this is a good time for you to share what are we doing on the energy environment nexus?
Great. No, first of all, let me start by saying that with a biodiversity background, we are working on ecosystem, right? Ecosystem comes from a biodiversity terminology that we work on species, ecosystem, genetic resources. And so it naturally comes that we really need to work on cross-sectoral, more integrated way. And so we're kind of trained on that. And also environment, of course, is a thematic issue, a cross-cutting issue that we've been working with all sectors across ADB as well as, beyond in DMCs. So it's, sort of, if I use Takeshi's analogy, we're in the blood to work on cross-sectoral issue. And it's really amazing to be in this panel with all the different sectors to work together on this. So I thought about, energy and environment and how we have been working on cross-sectoral issues in a most effective way. I thought about, air quality. I just come from Insight Thursday where we talked about air quality as well. And this is a natural fit that, to improve air quality and have clean air, you can't just have one sector working on this. So of course, most of, and it's very context specific. So different cities or different locality have different reasons for air pollution. So, in many of the cities, we have been working, of course, with transport to reduce emission or improve, vehicles and fuels and stuff like that. But, if we don't work on the energy side and see how we can transition from coal to clean technology and other things, we would not be achieving that. And it's, and more we're realizing that the agriculture residue burn is becoming a huge issue in this region. And, particularly in South Asia, the seasonal, air pollution due to burning of the residue of the agriculture is a huge issue. So in order to tackle this issue, we really need a cross-sectoral integrated approach. And if you come up with to show some examples, I really think that the China example is really the best one to talk about the Beijing-Tianjin-Hubei program. And this is, I really think, a highlight of ADB's support in terms of cross-sectoral, 2.5 billion investment within like 5 years, with 8 projects in different sectors, really trying to address this issue, starting from the PBL, with series of investment from energy sector, transport sector, including even agriculture to reduce, pollution and emission. And the huge success comes with, within the 5 years, we achieved PM 2.5 reduction of about 27%. And this is really unthinkable, actually, with the scale of issues that we had to face in China. And, we're actually trying to look at different opportunities to replicate. And we have had many, events recently bringing in DMCs to learn from the China model. Mongolia equally had a great success. Learning from that model was PBL and investment. I just come back from Pakistan last week where we met with all the ministries. And what was really enlightening, it was not the Ministry of Environment, Climate Change only saying air pollution is an issue. Every single ministry that we visited said, we really need to tackle air pollution, and also in an integrated manner. And I really think that those are the type of things that we can really put our efforts together, and we have a lessons learned that we can build on and really make a difference.
Thank you, Yoko. So what do you think is most difficult for ADB and government to work together to design and deliver these integrated solutions?
No, that's a really good question because, I think integrated project design and project, implementation really requires a lot of coordination. So we really need to be aware from very beginning that it would take some more time. And I think, we're always in this rush of bringing into the board and implement and meet the deadline and stuff like that. But I think for integrated approach, and if this is really having a high impact, we really need to consider that time frame in mind. And also the cost. I really think that the finance really needs to come together. And innovative financing, like, there is even air quality bonds and other innovative initiatives that we're having. We can utilize these more public-private partnership type investment and really scale these initiatives. And I think those are really important and able to a success. But last point that I also want to mention is that even in a cross-sectoral approach, each of the sectors needs to be accountable. Because, unless the results is clear and what you're really producing, you kind of have this very complex project which you can't really show impact after all. So I really think that when you're designing it, a key results framework that really shows by each sectors and how the integrated approach will show a larger sort of impact, 1 + 1 becomes 3 kind of analogy really needs to be shown.
Thank you very much. Can we see here by a show of hands, how many of you are from governments and work with government? Okay, so we have many here. Have you ever asked for an integrated solution? Anyone? Not yet. Okay, so so we are here, yeah, to work with you. So Antonio, digital is becoming the new energy. Can I say that? Or we're talking about digital is required for everything in development. So where do you see now digital coming in to make energy more efficient, expand energy access, and of course make it renewable? Where's your role, and what examples have you seen in ADB? But I think also share some examples from the Latin American region with us here.
Thank you so much, Susan, and thank you, Cindy, for having me here. Let me just start by saying that as of today, the total US value of the digital transformation economy in Asia Pacific represents approximately like around $1 trillion. In 2030, that is going to be 2.2. So at the end of the day, this implies that talking about digital transformation necessarily implies that is going to be affecting all the sectors actually of the economy, because there will be implications everywhere, and it's going to have, let's say, clear impact in terms of job creation, in terms of GDP growth, and also in terms of productivity. But there is a common denominator. It doesn't matter whether we are talking about energy or agriculture or water or transport or agriculture. The common denominator is the data. If digital is the energy, data is going to be a little bit like the DNA that each of us are living here and there anytime that we are doing a digital transaction. So you don't like that your DNA is over there
without any sort of protection, right? So at the end of the day, there are increasing discussion on digital risks that comes together with implications in terms of cybersecurity and implications related on how we can protect those infrastructure that precisely are represented in here and that has clear implications not only in terms of data privacy, but also in terms of national security, you know. So I think that what we are talking today around the digital arena is more than just digital transformation. You know, it's about every single of us lives and how this is having impact in the way we relate with the governments, with the private sector, and even across them. When we just think about the impact of digital into the climate change or climate resilience, I think that there are a number of examples that comes to my mind, you know. These days, everybody's talking about precisely AI. You know, since I came here 7 months ago, the two words that I have listened the most are artificial intelligence. But the true thing is that for artificial intelligence, you need at least three basic things. First and foremost, energy. Second, connectivity. And third, you are going to be very much in need of skills and the capacity to precisely run all the computing power that is required. And today we are talking a lot about how to use renewable energy or how to come up with green data centers. And that is one specific area in which the ADB is currently working here in the Philippines, and we are having conversations with the government of Indonesia. And the data center is precisely like the building where we are going to be storing all that data that is part of our DNA. And that by itself, it becomes a critical infrastructure, right? So that is one topic that we are very much concerned and that everybody is looking at it because of all the impact that it's going to have across the different sectors, since it is storing all the data, regardless whether we are talking about transport or water or whatever, you know. The other thing is that just transitioning from 4G to 5G is not only having implications in terms of the digital solutions that we are considering. These days, everybody's having a phone, maybe not a smartphone, but at least a specific type of phone that allows you to have access to internet and access to particular solutions. By moving from that, from 4G to 5G and making this exercise, you know, it contributes to reduce the carbon footprint and the CO2 emissions up to 30% as well. So that is another thing that we need to keep in mind. So technology can help us to precisely contribute to reduce the CO2 emissions. But the true thing is that the amount of money that needs to be invested is so huge that unless there is a public and private collaboration, partnership, that is not going to happen. So there are a lot of benefits, there are a lot of potential, but this is not a problem of just one sector or just one particular area. It's a problem of everyone, and everyone has to feel responsible and accountable for that.
Thank you. Before we go into the second round, I want to see if there are any questions here. So it's good to know if you have questions, because then we can tailor the discussion a bit more to your needs. We have there in the back, maybe if our stage producer can please give the microphone to the gentleman in the back. And then if you can introduce yourself also, from which country or organization you are from, and ideally your question is not longer than 2 sentences.
No, it's only about 2 seconds. Yeah, Sialatu from Tonga Energy Commission. I'm also the former chair of OPRA. Dealing with cross-sector solutions, we must have to identify the problems, right? And climate change, poverty, and equity are among the most critical issues of our time. Climate change has been there for ages, and us in the Pacific Islands have always voiced our concern in many international forums. Tuvalu is sinking. We are sinking. So there the problem is there. How can cross-sector solution, how can you suggest something to solve it? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So a very concrete problem, a huge problem. And your question is, how would we use integrated cross-sector solutions to address these problems? So Cindy, I'm looking at you, I'm looking for our ecosystem, but I think, we go around and start with you, yeah? Sure. Can we go back to the slide with the island? Yeah, okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Indeed, the islands, small island developing states are really, facing or bearing the brunt of the impacts of climate change. We are very much aware of that. So ADB has been working to look at it more comprehensively, and this is why these solutions that you are seeing on screen came about, because we looked at all the vulnerabilities, we look at the risk profiles, we look at the challenges that the community is facing, and try to incorporate, of course, within limits, because funding is always going to be an issue when it comes to cross-sector solutions, because you have to look at all of these. So you have to prioritize first based on the limits of what available funds you have, what available institutional capacity you also have. So we will need to look at it from the needs perspective, prioritize, come up with the potential solutions and a package of solutions to be able to address those vulnerabilities. And that's how we have approached this. And it might, help to know that we are actually developing a tool, a platform, where we will be looking at the profile of needs, risks, vulnerabilities of a particular context, then also have on the other side, the solutions. And we're gonna have a type of scoring mechanism, a weighting mechanism, to come up with the comprehensive solution within limits to address critical vulnerabilities. And that's, watch out for the next year or so.
Yes.
We should have that platform already available. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. Blair will talk about it. So I think that the three keywords are better risk assessments, then better prioritization, and better evidence-based projects that really address the most important issues of the sinking and what you said, islands and the effects of climate change. Would anyone like to add something? Yoko?
Yeah, and after doing those assessment and risk analysis and coming up with solution, I really think that particularly on the island nations and particularly talking about sea level rise, we cannot just, impose a conventional sort of technology and solution like, oh, let's bring, seawall. I mean, that's a easy, maybe, conventional infrastructure-based, particularly gray infrastructure-based solution. But I think more and more with the awareness raised and also technology coming on the nature-based solution is really, really important. And, many island nations really have your nature asset, like coral reef, like mangrove, like coastal areas that if managed well, it actually can be used as a buffer to address these issues. And I think those, solutions, mixed solutions with innovation is really important.
Yes, I think, and while helping to reduce the carbon footprint in the large countries, right, which are continuing to emit. Thank you. We have another question there in the back. There was another question.
Hi, Suzanne Augustine Antoine.
Yes.
Journalist.
Yes, Augustine, hello.
Hi, yeah, journalist and consultant. So I actually typed the question in the app, so I'll just read it from here.
I didn't see there's no question here. Please post your question, okay.
No worries. I'll just articulate it from here and keep to your 2 sentences. So to break down silos, development banks like ADB need to tackle this from within, meaning Yoko on stage spends a week with Antonio, literally a full week, and you follow Antonio everywhere, or Jamie spends a week with Cindy. So actually in real life, some governments are actually doing this, and private sector has actually mandated it. It's called the whole of government or the whole of society approach. I know I'm being cheeky here because all 6 speakers are bosses, but what are your thoughts about mandating your staff, your paper writers, your proposal people to spend time with another division, because that's the only way the silos are going to be broken, and then you have an integrated project development. Thank you.
Augustine, this is music to the ears of a knowledge manager. It's called, shadowing and on-the-job learning. Best way to transfer knowledge. So let's hear. How many of you have their staff in another sector right now? Oh, look, we have. Who wants? Jamie, you want to talk about it?
The example I gave was very much because we were working with Cindy and her team, and we were on mission together in Azerbaijan. And it was when we were sharing the information with the client of the possible solutions to address the problems they were raising. That's why, and so we went together, we spent that week together. We're actually planning 3 or 4 other countries to do exactly the same thing, to see, because you're exactly right. If we went in isolation and they went in isolation, we wouldn't have the same sort of support that we can provide. We wouldn't have the same knowledge base cutting across different areas that would respond to what, look at different, and working together, but going out for dinner together and sort of shooting the breeze about what's possible. Many things sort of start to be realized, and it's those kind of ad hoc discussions that you only see when you're spending time together. So I couldn't agree more with that.
Great. So I think one thing is better data and using data and tools. The other is really bringing the right people and experts together. So Antonio, you wanted to say something, and then Takeshi.
Yeah, thank you so much, Susan. And thank you very much for the question. I think that is something critical, because at the end of the day, all the MDBs are working on demand basics, and whatever is the project is being at the end of the day, being taxpayers' money. So we have to be very mindful on how efficient we are in the provision of our projects, But I would like to also bring another angle to your question that I cannot agree more, that is critical to have this interdivisional collaboration across all the different sectors anytime that we are designing a project that entails an ecosystem like the one that Cindy or Jamie has been presented, but also with other donors. Last week, actually this week, I was in Cambodia, and I had the opportunity to meet with the UNDP, with the ITU, International Telecommunications Union staff, and also with the Gates Foundation. So I think that there are a lot of donors that are ready to support. And one thing that we have to also achieve is to be more coordinated among ourselves, and make sure that every single dollar that we invest has a multiplier effect thanks to the collaboration and the interaction across internally, different sectors, but also with some other donors. So I think that that is a very well taken, a very important point. Thank you for raising it.
Thank you. Yoko, before you, it was Takeshi first. Oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's okay.
Thank you. Yep. President Kanda announced this 40 billion, 26 billion from 2026 to 2030 for agriculture systems transformation for Asia and the Pacific. And our sector is, in a sense, advanced for this sovereign and non-sovereign cooperation. For instance, one of my projects back in 2008, we started lending to processing or agriculture SMEs. Now, some of the companies became clients of our private sector operations. We share regularly, if there is potential companies, we share information of such companies, of course, with the consent of companies, and we feel the missions together. So, the kind of effort we are doing. And so.
Thank you. So what you're saying is also learning from partners and with partners and the private sector. together, I think is important. Yoko, please.
Yeah, just a quick
Learning
a
from
practical example is I think, you know, having a co-lead of a project from different sectors, like my team actually is co-leading with agriculture or with transport and others together. And I think that really brings in that co-learning that you actually mentioned. Like the good example is Daunting Lake project from last year's approval. My team's Duncan Lang, who is working on a regional flyway initiative, being part of the wetland and restoration project of agriculture, really brings in that sort of reality check of both sides, as well as bringing in the different expertise to develop the project really strong and have a really multiple benefits. I'm not going to call it co-benefit because I really think it's a multiple benefit of water and wildlife management and restoration for both cities, even to water supply. There's a multiple benefit that can come with these one ADB type of team and have that cross-sectoral thing. And I'd love to do together with Antonio or whoever and our level too, so that we can really bring in that sort of higher level policy push to make that more happen.
Thank you. Before, if you want to add something? Yeah.
So what we are doing is we're also trying to complement our own teams. One of the issues that we are facing in the cities is really the investment readiness of some of these cities. We are actually now getting people from our private sector teams to join as part of our own team so that we can service our clients much better because we understand both the public and private sector side. And specific projects like when we're looking at lake ecosystem or other tourism projects, we're constantly bringing in people with environmental background, people who have worked in agriculture and natural resources or irrigation to really have a joined up solution. So it's already happening quite significantly. Certainly it can be scaled up further, but these are all, I think a couple of years ago it would have been difficult, but post the new operating model that came in, this presents us with a phenomenal opportunity to scale it up.
Thank you. So now, Cindy, you wanted to add something before we go to the next question?
Well, just quickly, we already are actually collaborating a lot across the sectors. And one concrete example, we have the water and energy project in the Solomon Islands, although this is an actual water project, but energy is leading it. So we are becoming more agile in the way we approach problems and solutions. Thank you.
Thank you. So now before we go to Dodo on his reaction, I think we have a few more online questions here, which can be answered, I think, quite quickly. And they're not, probably there isn't one answer, there are many answers. So one question here is, are cross-sectoral solutions more suited to truly emerging technologies or to new applications for more mature technologies? Both. Both? What we vote? Who thinks it's one or the other or both? Okay, depends on context and country. Depends on context and country. So the next question here is, do integrated approaches prolong the design stage of projects and programs? And if so, does that create challenges with member countries who tend to want infrastructure a lot faster? Maybe take a.
So this is where you know, data is really needed, because once you have the data that's required in terms of challenges, it's very easy then to design the solutions across the sectors.
There's another question asking for frameworks to collaborate better, and I think that's where you will hear from Blair later about tools that we are developing for better collaboration. The next question is, oh, that's an interesting question. What is the most important sector to target for collaboration? Where would we start? What's the sector where you could collaborate best? Srini? Digital? So you're saying?
Yeah, we've thought about this. So it's energy, digitalization, and climate, because these are three cross-cutting themes, not necessarily sectors, but themes and sectors, because we are all cross-cutting. Yeah, we impact climate, we are impacted by climate. Yes, digitalization, we all need to work smarter, we all need to think smarter. Yeah, so I think those are the three important sectors for collaboration, but we will all be there in the other sectors.
Thank you. So maybe you can think about more questions you may have. And now, Dodo, are you ready for your reactions? Maybe you want to come to the stage and, you know, Want to make sure health is central, yeah, for everything.
Thanks, Suzanne. Sorry. I always like to talk in okay. I think it's quite opportune that before coming here, there's actually a discussion that we have. I think I have Antonio, Cindy, and Takeshi that we're part of. We're actually trying to transform ourselves. And I think part of our challenge is that we call this cross-sectoral and them as sectors when they're actually naturally cross-sectoral. So maybe the use of the word sector is the first thing we need to stop in order for us to have cross-sectoral select. Because the moment we first sectors were in silos, right? So that means I only think of health. Maybe what Cleo said in the chat, she said, let's call it solutions. If you think about it, digital is always cross-sectoral. Environment is always cross-sectoral. How can urban be a sector? It's cross-sectoral, right? And energy here in ADB is now clean energy. That's cross-sectoral. But traditionally, when we were older, well, I was not here, Jamie was here, it was a classic infrastructure sector. And so was transport. But now transport, when you talk to Jamie, it's sustainable transport. So if you think about it, ADB has actually shifted really to we're providing cross-sectoral solutions, and probably the first thing we need to do now is to start changing our names. Let's start calling ourselves that. Second, I think this is the strength, right? I'm a health guy, I used to be with WHO. When I was in WHO, it was so hard to talk with transport or energy people, right? They won't take they take my calls, but it's so hard I have to pay for a lot of dinner and other things, right? Sin taxes if you're in the Philippines, you know. Here, you had 6 people, different cross-sectoral solutions in one. It's so hard to get this. And I always explain that in ADB, one of the great things, if I have a problem, I just go up 1 floor in the elevator, go down 1 floor in the elevator, or listen to great piano in the staff hub as we talk about solutions. So this, in a sense, that's the strength of a MDB. That's why I'm working here and not in WHO. And so, but our challenge is that we always say, unfortunately, when we talk to governments, they're more than sector. They're silos, hardened silos, right? With missiles and all. So the challenge is how can we make them really engage? You know, that when I talk to health or they talk to transport, to Vince Dizon in the Philippines, he can take on everything and really need enlightenment. The models are great. One more thing we need to do, of course, is that as we look into health, and in a sense within ADB, as we change the name, we also need to change our incentives, another point we discussed. And one way we do that is our indicators. ADB actually has a very powerful, vision statement: sustainable, inclusive, prosperous, resilient Asia and the Pacific. But if we look at our performance indicators, it's not based on that. We still go into project type indicators. Maybe it's time for us to start assessing ourselves, resilient. Call our project, how does you make it resilient? How do you make it inclusive? How do you make it prosperous? So that's easy, increasing GDP. How do you make it sustainable? Finally, because I am in health, as I think about this, and allow me, Susan, I think you're gonna love this. One of the things we deal in health is we have to deal with things that these guys do and affects health, right? They keep on polluting the air. We have to take care of people with lung cancer and all that. They keep on letting not renewable energy. So we have to deal with the heat, right? Urban allow flooding, so we have to deal with floods. And of course, Yoko did not stop lead from coming all over. I'm just kidding. So we have to deal with lead poisoning. So one of the things we're looking in health, we actually want to do what we call the avatars. Assembling various actors that they can respond to firebenders. You watch firebenders. We address heat. We address air pollution. We address lead poisoning. We address flooding. And actually within ADB, we're doing a lot of that work now. So I think I would end there, that they will become the avatars of cross-sectoral work. No, cross-sectoral solutions. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dario. So before we go now to a solution we are developing for solutioning integrated solutions, any more last questions? Now you have the last opportunity to have 160 years of experience to, to respond to you. Any last burning question? You can say something, Jamie, yes.
To pick up on the additional time to do something beyond that. But if you look at it in a different way, and I think it was what Dodo was referring to, the benefits, the lifting people out of poverty, if you're looking at a more integrated cross-sectoral solution, you're going to have significantly more benefits. So the additional time spent pays back multiple.
Yes, yes, indeed. Definitely. So let's hear now from Blair how we are planning to help and provide tools. And with that, I would like to thank this amazing panel and for your time here today for representing solutions at ADB. Thank you.
So thank you again to the panel. We have about 15 minutes more. We have 2 sub-agenda items, and it's my pleasure to talk you through the penultimate part before we go to the closing address. I'm here, so, it came up in the questions. We know what cross-sector solutions are, but how do we make them real? What does the ADB have to do internally? How does the countries that have to make these real in their world, how does that happen in governments when we're organized as nations in silos? Ministry of Energy, Ministry of Transport. So how do we break that down? And the ADB has been thinking about this, and the answer is this: Azul Rubik. But before I tell you a little bit more about what Azul Rubik is, which is a program of change and a suite of tools, I'd like to just take a moment to tell you why is it Azul Rubik? What's the meaning behind the name? If anybody speaks Spanish or Portuguese, you'll know that Azul means blue. Blue in this context is for blue sky thinking, innovation, new ways of working. But it's also for the blue economy, economies that are island nations or coastal communities where integration and collaboration is more required, or by default of proximity, something that is more inherent in day-to-day life. But Rubik, we all know what a Rubik's Cube is. We've seen these before. Can I ask, we know there is one, and I see some people that heard me ask this question yesterday, so please, you can say the answer, but just give me a moment for those who haven't thought of this. We know there's one right answer to a Rubik's Cube. Does anyone have a guess as to how many other possible combinations that there are? Is it option A, are there about 4,000 different ways to turn those 27 cubes? Is it option B, 200,000? Or is it option 3, around 4 billion? It can't possibly be option C, can it? And it's not, because that's way too small. Can anyone that saw this yesterday remember the ballpark figure? Can anyone shout out and tell me? It's 43 quintillion different possibilities in a Rubik's Cube. And I'm not just here, it's an unbelievable number. But when we think about that toy through that lens, when we think about how that toy becomes an outrageous simplification of complexity, and we think about the ADB's goal to solve complex challenges together, then that is the channel for Azul Rubik, to help simplify complexity in a number of different forms. Integrated solutions are by nature a little bit more complicated to get to. So many different inputs have to be stitched together to get to that perfect combination. One part of Azul Rubik is going to be a tool that brings together the full set of knowledge that is required as kind of factual inputs. If you can think of, every country has their development needs, and there's a world of possible technical solutions available. How do you get from that world of the possible, that super long list, down to the right solution? You have to have context. You have to have filters that apply financial considerations, that have to apply regional, national, and local context. You have to be able to understand, where has this worked? What was the lessons learned? What other information is there that can help us come up with this? So if Azul Rubik in this form becomes a way of taking that data set that goes so far beyond any set of information one person could have, one organization could have on their own, it removes bias, it removes indecisiveness. It just works on facts with a little bit of AI-powered logic to take the world of the possible down to a subset of solutions that have a reasonable chance of applying. It doesn't take away human involvement, but hopefully it speeds up the conversation to get to a much shorter set of possible solutions that then people can collaborate on and help to make real. If the jigsaw behind me then is this database and there's an overlay and there's context, then how does that practically get used? We want to start thinking that project teams, project officers within the ADB will be able to interact with this to say, I'm working on this region, this country, this challenge. Give me ideas, please. What could work from a cross-sector integrated perspective? And then start to think about that. But we know it doesn't just work within the ADB. We need to take that and we need to bring it out to governments around the world, the DMCs that the ADB serves, to make that available for them as well. And that is absolutely part of the solution. Maybe the emphasis gets shifted. Maybe it becomes about case studies, connecting, collaborating, capacity building in that context. But that is an idea for a part of Azul Rubik, that it is a suite of tools supporting an overall program of change, new ways of working internally, incentives and KPIs that move away from the traditional sectoral boundaries. All of this is part of Azul Rubik. We're at the early stages just now of figuring out how to make that real, and we're seeking ideas from people that would use it internally within the ADB and externally as well. I have a short video that I would just like to play.
The world is becoming increasingly complicated. Please. We are dealing with...
If I can get the thumbs up, please, when the sound is good to go. Thumbs up.
The world is becoming increasingly complicated. We are dealing with a variety of complex challenges. In Asia and the Pacific region, we need to create sustainable energy sources, as well as find innovative ways to deal with climate impacts, the digital divide, and food system vulnerability. At the Asian Development Bank, our mission is clear: to support these regional countries, especially those lacking adequate human resources, technical, financial, and economic capacity, to navigate these complex challenges. ADB is working with our members and partners to employ cutting-edge technology to ease the complexity of deploying emerging sustainable solutions. To do this, we need a new way of working, one that puts knowledge and powerful analytical tools in the hands of decision makers. And that meant tapping the enormous potential of artificial intelligence. Imagine a program of change supported by a suite of tools, some AI-powered, helping ADB recommend projects to developing member countries and supporting project officers to design and deliver knowledge-based, innovative, and impactful integrated cross-sector solutions. Its name is Azul Rubik. The Emerging Areas team of ADB's energy sector is now designing this AI-powered tool to match vulnerabilities, projects, and impacts, and turn them into clear, actionable recommendations. Azul means blue and Rubik refers to that well-known cube where people use their ingenuity to solve a daunting puzzle. Azul Rubik will help create simplicity and efficiency as concept node processing can be reduced by 50%, and workflows are automated to accelerate project approvals and funding deployment. This creates smart cross-sector integrated solutions, addressing energy, transport, water, agriculture, health, education, and climate change. Our use of Azul Rubik will help empower people to make better long-term decisions for the health of the planet and for the prosperity of nations and their communities. By embracing the power of digitalization, AI, and collaborative innovation, we can turn obstacles into opportunities by empowering smarter decision-making and turning complexity into speedy and simple solutions. That is the power of Azul Rubik.
And then to deliver some closing remarks, I'd like to invite DJ Hidia, please, to the stage. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, thank you all for staying on till the end. And also, I thank all the panelists and speakers for contributing to this session. There was a prepared remarks, but after listening to all these powerful messages and video, probably I can be much simpler. I think the intention to introduce this new, Azul Rubik is to tackle complex challenges, but in a simpler way. And that simplicity may come by removing silos within ADB. And likewise, there are many DMC colleagues joining. I would urge you to also try to break down those silos within your institutions, your governments. That would probably make the solution simpler. And I ask my colleagues to endeavor to respond well to your country, your society's challenges, not necessarily your own organization's challenge. Of course, to address those bigger challenges, we may have to tackle individual systems. But the ultimate goal is to address those bigger challenges which your people are faced with. So we should be looking at those and try to find probably simpler ways to address those solutions. Of course, we should not leave anybody behind. And also we should come up with solutions which are sustainable, resilient, and addressing all the challenges we face, including climate change. So that's basically the message I have at this moment. And again, I thank everyone for joining this session. And I thank the team who has worked to develop this new concept. And now we are rolling it out. So I'm quite excited to see the development of this initiative into implementation and operation. Thank you.